in the troubled western region of Darfur. But Darfur is not the only part of Sudan that is struggling. After decades of war, the infrastructure is so dismal that many rural areas remain completely cut off. Now, one organization is trying to change all that, not by dispatching food or aid workers, but by sending hundreds of thousands of cheap, blue, wind-up radios. International Relief and Development is spearheading the project in remote villages in the Upper Nile region of Sudan. Earlier today, I spoke with one of the group's officers, Nick Demeter, to discuss the project's goals. Well, Nick, thanks for joining us in the studio. You're going to send 250,000 of these radios to Sudan. That's unprecedented, isn't it?
Well, yes. USAID's program is to distribute 250,000 of these radios, and we're helping in that effort in the Upper Nile region. A lot of these radios are distributed through boats, by vehicle, sometimes through villages that take 3 days to travel to.
Okay, so before we talk about the political importance of all this, tell us about the actual radio itself.
Sure. Well,
let's start with the color.
Well, the color is a politically neutral color.
UN blue?
UN blue doesn't correlate to any political parties.
Right.
And since this is a version that is distributed worldwide by Free Play, that's how the color is decided on. But it's a wind-up as well as a solar.
Right.
So providing you've got good weather, you can run a charge without even having to wind it. A charge of a winding of about this long will take you through a typical radio program, which are done through our Let's Talk community radio programs.
So that was 3 seconds of winding gets you, what, a couple of hours of listening?
That's what it'll get you.
And is it FM, is it shortwave, is it both?
Well, there's two shortwave stations, bands, so they can access radio programming in Arabic language, English language, French, as well as FM and AM. And FM is typically where the signals come in for our Let's Talk community program.
Now, why 250,000 in Sudan?
Well, it's a large country, and a lot of the displaced persons, a lot of the remote areas mean that these will be readily accessible to these communities, and a big portion of these going in the south, you could use 500,000. Why 250? That seems to be the budget that was allocated for this particular project.
But the idea is that you're trying to target communities that live in a kind of bubble of ignorance, relying mainly on rumor as their primary source of information.
Absolutely.
To find out what's actually going on.
Absolutely. You have the comprehensive peace agreement that is really the cornerstone of the government, and the ability of people to understand that process, to learn about the new mechanisms of how their local governance are arranged, about local elections that are coming up. These are all critical pieces of information that if people don't have them, they're more prone to violence and conflict.
So in other words, this thing here, as far as you're concerned, is a political tool of empowerment.
Well,
really?
Information is power. So the more information you give to people, and the less control over that information is in government hands or opposition forces' hands, the better it is for the people.
You're not going to be telling them which radio stations to tune into, though, are you?
Not necessarily, but they'll have a choice. There's FM stations that play music exclusively. There's news channels.
So how can you be sure that they're going to listen to something which is so-called neutral information?
Well, I think it's, in our Let's Talk program and our training, we show them the range of stations that are available, and twice monthly the group gathers together to tune into the special station that talks about the local elections and roles and responsibilities of citizens in a democracy, and should they choose to listen to other things, that's okay as well. We have a caretaker that takes care of each radio in each village, so we can keep track of that and make sure that people are listening to the programs.
Because information cuts both ways, doesn't it? I mean, in Sudan there might be a dearth of information through the radio. The Rwandan genocide arguably was actually fueled through government radio stations on the radio.
Sure, and this is obviously a big concern, that these radios are used for the right purpose, which again leads us back to having these community roundtable discussions. Often it's a religious or political or traditional leader in these communities that bring the community together, and they listen to these and then have discussions about what they just heard. So again, monitoring this process is obviously of critical importance.
And finally, Nick, if you are a villager somewhere in the middle of Darfur and you're getting hold of one of these, and the Janjaweed come along and say, you've got a propaganda tool here, or it might even be conceived as a spying implement or something absurd like that, is there a cost in this campaign?
Well, I think if the Janjaweed want to come into your village, they're going to do what they want
Whether you
anyway,
have a radio or not.
whether you have a blue radio or not. Again, the risk, the benefit outweighs the risk in this regard, and giving people information that can help them protect themselves from these incidents, as well as participate in the process. A lot of these radio programs are call-in shows, are ways for citizens to participate and to hear the common man's voice and their fears and concerns over the crisis in Darfur and South Sudan, wherever in the country, is important to keeping stability in the country.
Demeter, thank you very much for coming in. Fascinating stuff.
Thank you very much.
There's much more ahead here on BBC World News America, cracking down on